You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
What a time to be alive, my friends. The NHL's on fire. The Leafs are on fire. I guess we're booing anthems now. So much to cover on the Monday edition of Leafs Morning Take, presented by Bet365. It is Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. What's happening, Rosie? How are you, buddy?
What's going on? Another Monday morning show, man. The weeks are flying by, but we're on a little bit of a high after a little Edmonton Oilers takedown on their home turf, which feels kind of nice. We needed that.
Yeah, we're going to break down this game. I'll tell you where I was for the game, although everybody knows who listens and watches this podcast. Just a great time at producer Vic's wedding over the weekend, so we'll get into that. Don't forget, our Super Chat charity partner this season is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and third in the world. First and foremost, welcome back to the show, producer Andy, back in the mix for the next couple of weeks. So welcome back, Andy. And producer Vic got married on Saturday, off to Africa for the next couple of weeks. So looking forward to that for him.
Goodness me. Yeah, I got the typical couple of FaceTimes from you guys. It looked like a pretty skookum wedding. My goodness. It was fancy. Everyone done up. You have a blast. Have you recovered?
Scale of 1 to 10, how pinned was I in those videos?
You weren't bad yet. It's hard to hear anything. You just look and you're pointing the camera around like a doughhead, but it looked nice. And you didn't show anything that would suggest otherwise. But I did miss like the 4 a.m.er that you sent me. So
yeah,
that was probably a little sloppier, I imagine.
That would have been the one that slapped for sure. That would have been a bonding moment for everybody involved. But man, I got to say it. This, I kid you not, and I'm Italian. I've been to some great weddings. Like this was like a top 3 wedding. I thought it was really cool, first and foremost, to do it in the month of February. Like it was really damn cold outside, but everything just done to a T. Like even the food was fantastic. You know, you go to some of these weddings and it's like hit or miss. Like I just thought it was awesome.
I just saw a lot of dollar signs around there. My goodness, they didn't hold back at all.
No.
I hope Vicky's father-in-law was cutting some checks for that one, or you're going to be behind the 8 ball for a little while, buddy. But man, it looked nice, and yeah, those come and go so fast. But always a blast when you get to go. And I like the February one too. Why not? Nothing else going on. Might as well do something like that. Where was it?
It was in Vaughan. They even had a belly dancer, man. Like this thing was a production. And by the way, we did take it or leave it on Friday. I know you weren't there. And one of the take it or leaves it was will producer Vic get emotional / cry during his speech. And we both said take it. He did not. Kept it composed, kept it together. Really good speech. He did mention the Leafs a couple times, but man, to keep that composure on your wedding day, that's something.
Well, I'm glad you made her for the Monday morning show after a bit of a ripper there that night. So good for you guys.
Producer Vic wanted me to add that the Leafs now 2-0 this season when he's not watching games. Didn't watch that one. And with the wedding decorator, I guess a couple weeks ago, didn't dive into that one. But what was your weekend like, Rosie?
What was it like? Hockey games. Did a little snowmobiling on the side with the kids, and my nephew had a birthday party out at my brother's shop. That's where we watched the game. And man, I was hot on my group chat with a lot of Oilers fans. It was a good night for one of those, and just mashing bets like crazy and hitting just about all of them. It was a very good Saturday night for myself.
Maybe it's because we work at the Nation Network, but I kid you not, there's nothing sweeter right now in my world than beating the Edmonton Oilers, not once, but twice, just to give it. And again, very Leafy. We're going to get to the game, and I didn't watch the game, but Joseph Woll was awesome from what I understand. The save at the end on Perry was incredible. But the Leafs up 3-0. What do you think we did at the table, me and Zach Phillips? I hate to admit it, but the live bet on the Edmonton Oilers, because just games like that seem to happen a lot, but they held things tight. They found a way to get the job done in that game, but it just felt like it had a bit of everything. And you're so right. Like a Saturday night, hockey night in Canada, Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, we got a McDonald's commercial. Like I think it lived up to the hype a bit.
Yeah, it did. I mean, from a Leafs fan's perspective, they come out of the gates that hot. They needed it. I mean, they've had trouble scoring. Starting on time at times has been an issue. There's been a streak of games where they get the first goal scored on them, and it just sucks to put yourself behind the eight ball. But Willie came out of the barrel hot, like breakaway, several chances. He was absolutely buzzing, and just kind of fades one in there with a good screen from Patches and gets us on the board. And just another one. I was on the group chat just laughing, just roasting these guys who had nothing. And but the thing is, with any team, you get up on 3 goals that
Yeah.
early, and it's against the Edmonton Oilers. It's like, it's human nature to kind of hold on
Sure.
for dear life a little bit, and there's going to be a massive push, and they are that skilled, and they are a team that tends to kind of come on a lot stronger in the second half. So I knew that it wasn't going to be a blowout, but I thought that the Leafs were have been a little better at holding on to leads. And I know it's 3 goals, and some people are like, oh, you can't be giving that back. Well, geez, man, you get
Yeah.
up that hot with that much time left against that hockey club, you got to expect them to make a big push and kind of close that gap. So I wasn't as upset about it as some people might have been, but overall, pretty solid game. They got the job done, and it was from the power play to Marner and Nylander, and especially Joseph Woll was ridiculous. What did I text our group chat before the game? If Woolsey plays good, we're going to take this game, and that's exactly what happened.
45 saves, and again, none bigger than the stop at the buzzer on Corey Perry, who was just like befuddled. He couldn't believe he didn't score, but what a save by Joseph Woll. It's been a great story. I mean, lost in the shuffle again of all the Stolarz convo the last couple months is Woll's been there, right? And that's been the read on the guy. Just can't stay in that crease, but he has the last little while. It's great to see. And the two-headed monster back in between the pipes here with Stolarz and Joseph Woll, and we'll see when Stolarz actually returns to the crease for this team. Maybe it's Thursday against Seattle. Maybe it's tomorrow against the Calgary Flames. Dave Bem writes in, I live in Edmonton, and where I volunteer, they're all Oilers fans. I'm going to wear my Leafs jacket, sweater, and cap in the morning. I love that, Dave. Great
Not a
stuff.
boy. It's always
That's great
fun
stuff.
doing that stuff. Yeah, I had speaking of like Oilers Nation and the Nation Network and stuff, Tyler Yarmchuk at the end of the game, I can't remember exactly what his tweet
Oh,
was,
they're
but it was like,
complaining about something, right?
I
Yeah.
guess the refs weren't
Yeah.
interested in the Oilers comeback. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
God. And to start the game with the penalties and power plays,
Yeah.
calling weak. There's weak little ticky-tack plays on everybody, but it's just so odd when, like, really don't think I do that. I hang out with like Montreal Canadiens fans sometimes, and they're like, oh, we're the most penalized team in the league. Oh, the league clearly doesn't want them to win. And I'm like, this big conspiracy. I'm like, how do you think that works, man? Like, really? You only notice the penalties against your own team, and then when there's a ticky tack one against yours, you don't even address it. You're just like, all right, power play, let's go. And just in your mind, everything's against you. And I clap back on Yarmchuk, but no response from him as far as I could tell.
Oh, for sure. It's always an excuse. There's always a reason why the Oilers lose the game. It's like, sorry, you lost. And to use that ref excuse against the Leafs is offside, for a lack of a better term, because did you know it's now 10 of the last 14 games, Toronto's been handed 2 power plays or less. Like that is a ridiculous, ridiculous stat considering who's on that Leafs roster. I thought about you on Sunday. I don't know if you caught this. The Buffalo, New Jersey game brought shades of Sheldon Keefe's Maple Leafs maybe like 2 years ago when we started this show, maybe 3 years ago now. And the lack of response. Did you see the elbow from Stefan Nason yesterday on Tage Thompson, the superstar player of the Buffalo Sabres? Dude, full drive-by. Buffalo just looking at the guy.
Didn't see any
Nothing.
of it.
Nothing. They didn't do
Too
anything.
bad. It's such a bad look, man. Sometimes I wonder in this league, in this day and age, when guys just don't have a response to like stand up for themselves, stand up for a teammate, when they just get disrespected, when they just allow themselves to just get, their heads driven into certain. I'm just like, I don't know, man. It's just odd. Like, remember the time where to a man, every guy on every roster has a point. Like, some guys are more physical than others. Some guys would never want to engage in a fight. I get that, but sometimes you just push any player of a certain era to a limit. Things are happening. The guy's going to stand up and say that's enough. This is not acceptable. Nowadays, it's like the majority of the league is just like no response, no heartbeat, no emotion, no intensity, no balls, and it's just it makes you shake your head. Like, where did these guys grow up, man? Did they ever not get that memo that standing up for yourself and others is kind of part of character, especially on a hockey team?
And every time I see stuff like that, I'm like, I guess I'm old. I'm more old school. You were a fighter in the league. We're just different brains, but like it always reminds me of the bubble, the pandemic, and Nick Foligno's response. I think it was to Corey Perry, where there was like that knee to John Tavares' head, and he didn't mean to do it, but there's like audio of it. And he's like, "We just have to do it. We have to go." You look at that, and then you see shit like this, where it's like your star player takes a blatant elbow in the head. It was a nasty looking play, and I think a suspension is coming for Nason. And I get it. Like, things move fast on the ice and you're not going to see it. You're telling me one player did not see it. Like, I don't endorse coming off the bench, but if there's a moment to make sure your point is told, it's probably that moment when your star player is ripped like that.
And like, you don't, any response is warranted. You don't have to go and bare knuckle fight this guy or square off with him at center, or have this big stage thing. Like, any single player, big, small, skilled, tough, go after the guy, and you're in full equipment. There's referees around. You go bear hug this guy, grab him around the neck, and start swinging him around and fall to the ice, and then just start jostling around like that. At least you did something. And like, I'll tell you, when you're on a bench and something happens to a skill guy, and someone that you wouldn't expect goes and bear hugs and mauls this guy and grabs him and throws him to the ice or whatever, has a little pile up hug fest, everyone else jumps in. No
Yeah.
one's hurt. It doesn't hurt you. It's not scary. Like, it, I don't know why you wouldn't do that. Like, it invigorates the bench. Your respect level goes through the roof. It shows team toughness. It shows character. And it's just like, these younger kids just don't get that, or certainly don't value it anymore.
It was a sickening part of it. They commemorated Robbie Ray like 3 days before.
Yeah, exactly.
And like what? And that's the way you respond.
I bet
That's
you
the
half
way you
the team
respond.
doesn't know who the hell Rob Ray is. Like,
Yeah.
they're too young to have watched the Don Cherry videos. I don't know. Like, it's just, it doesn't seem like they have one iota of that in them. I mean, I was raised on Rock'em Sock'em, and like watching
Yeah.
Eric Lindros like just manhandle guys, and my eyes were just wide going, "Oh my God, that's awesome." And I just don't think these kids had one iota of that. And they don't, like I said before on this pod, I've talked to guys that run teams and are scouts and stuff, and I just say, why don't you go get a guy with some jam? Like, all these pussies in the league, why don't you go after a guy that just runs the table with these guys, can do whatever they want, runs the show, and is super physical, calls out an entire bench, just makes a mockery of these gutless teams and players. And they look at me and they go, they don't exist anymore. Like, they're unicorns. You can't find them. And if I was like, which I am, a dad raising kids, and they're too young to really be at that level, but I would be like, play with an edge, play with a chip on your shoulder. Don't back down from anything. Finish every hit. If anyone chirps, you stop and challenge them. Like, just, even if nothing comes of it, it's such a valuable thing in a hockey game that everybody has lost. And I see a major open door for players to play physical with that Darcy Tucker intensity. You'd walk onto teams, man. They're begging for it. And for some reason, these soft kids don't want to do it. And it's really not that hard.
I know it wasn't least related, but yeah, I thought about you as soon as I think I was watching it live, and I'm like, "You're kidding me? Nobody even batted an eye, man." It brought back memories of a couple of years ago. The Leafs team has changed a bit in the way they sort of see plays like that. Still not the best, but not the worst, which we love to see. And of course, they do have a tough guy in Ryan Reeves, so that's always good on that front as well. In support of sick kids, Maurice Patra writes in, "What are the chances that the Toronto Maple Leafs try to go after Connor McDavid because of him looking forward to playing with Mitch Marner at the Four Nations?" I can't wait for that narrative coming out of the Four Nations, that Mitch Marner was good and guys love playing with him, right?
Oh, I imagine guys like playing with him. I mean, he can get you the puck, and he's got good puck possession.
The
Mitch
star.
Marner is a
Yeah.
really good player.
Yeah.
Skilled players would love to play with them. I think skilled guys get sometimes picky about who they play with and what their vision, hockey IQ is, and they play with a guy that, is a little too north south, or doesn't see these little subtle openings that a super skilled guy would like to have plays made in. You supplement that with a Mitch Marner, and that's a guy that kind of sees everything. Mitch sees the ice very well, so I don't doubt at all that people are looking forward to playing with him. I'm interested to see the chemistry in that tournament throughout all the different, nations teams, like who's clicking with who. Obviously, the Canadian team, Sid, Nathan McKinnon, all these different players with McCarr on the back end, and see how Mitchie fits in. Very interesting to see what clicks. But as far as McDavid, I don't know. I think the first nail in the coffin for that ship to have sailed is going to be the fact that Draisaitl is signed long-term in Edmonton. I don't know how joined at the hip those two guys are, but it's always something that Oilers fans roll their eyes at when you say Connor's coming to Toronto. But until he signs on that line, I think it's worth dreaming about.
Probably a pipe dream. You're right, but I think that those two are so tight, and I think if you're Draisaitl, you're not re-signing if McDavid hasn't assured you. But again, it's pro sports; anything's possible. Again, Luka Doncic got traded over the weekend, so you just never know. Not to correlate it to the NBA, different league, but expect the unexpected. Mikko Rantanen got traded for crying out loud, so you just never know. Let's play hypothetical. You're Mitch Marner on Friday. You hear the news about the salary cap going up. What kind of GIF or video are you sending to your agent? Is it full Jerry Maguire on that one?
It's a Brinks truck backing up to a hockey rink. But yeah, I think the next year's guaranteed and the other two aren't guaranteed. But I mean, by all accounts, it'll get there, short of another pandemic or something crazy. But it looks like it's going up and going up a considerable amount. So not just Mitch Marner, everyone on UFA status right now's eyes just got a little bit bigger because, when the cap's tight and it's not going up and money's, not flowing like it could, every other dollar is a dogfight to try to get. The GMs get really tight with it, and it's tough to get deals done. Now all of a sudden you open up another, $7 and $8 million. It's not hard to get an extra $1.5 million AAV on a brand new deal when you're a high end player. So I think a lot of guys' eyes got wide. That's very good news. And it's good news for the fans too, because it means the league is doing well, the league is healthy, the revenue's coming in, and you can spread that across the players, rightfully so, as they are the product making all that money. So good news for the NHL in general. And yeah, we'll see what this does with Mitchie. I honestly, I really don't have any idea what's going to happen with this Mitchie contract. I think it's very likely that maybe they can win 2 rounds and get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and then it's just a done deal and he signs, and they justify it by bringing, Tavares down, and hey, we're close. We got to the conference finals. We got open money. We got John Tavares money opening up here. The cap went up. That would make a lot of sense. I think that's very likely to happen. I hope it's what happens, to be honest with you. I hope this team can win. I don't want to get rid of Mitch, but we've talked about it a million times to go with the same group of players who together collectively can't quite play playoff hockey very well. It's just I just don't think you can commit 8 years to the same thing. I think that's a little bit crazy. So we'll see what happens this year, man. It's super interesting, and he's obviously a talking point we've brought up many times on this pod. But if anyone says they know what's going to happen, I think they're kidding themselves. I think it's undecided.
And if you missed it on Friday, the cap is expected to jump from 88 this year to 95.5 next year to 104 to 113.5. Dude, this is such a win for a franchise like the Toronto Maple Leafs because they have the financial wherewithal to be able to do it, to flex their muscles, to spend to the cap. Like I almost fear for like the bottom teams that are smaller markets that can't, spend to that cap. Like I think parity is going to go out the window to an extent, but I think this is a great development for a team like the Maple Leafs who have that money to spend down the road.
Yeah, the Toronto Maple Leafs aren't lacking in funds in any way, shape, or form. They're the richest team in the league by far. What I worry about a little bit is, economically and politically right now with these tariffs and whatnot, what that could do to the Canadian dollar. And, for people that don't know, the Canadian teams are paying that salary cap in US dollars.
Yeah.
So to have the cap go up that drastically, if there is some teams that are a little bit tighter, luckily Canadian teams are, not hurting for support and a fan base. But when you start converting that dollar at that 104 and 8 million, $113 million, convert that from Canadian to American. If the dollar gets smacked here in the next coming months, it's tough, and it's not helpful, and it doesn't help those organizations at all. So we'll keep track of that. As I said, it's great for the league, and it's a good sign that the cap goes up. But man, if the Canadian dollar goes down and the cap's going up, it makes it tough on those owners to keep justifying this exchange rate.
Really is the Wild West out there right now. Be sure to join us in Nashville, Rose Day, Thursday, March 20th through Sunday, March 23rd, the first ever TLN Nation vacation. We're offering up 2 different packages, one with flights $24.50 plus tax, one without $12.99 plus tax. Hotel rooms are double occupancy. For more information on how to book, head on over to nationgear.ca. That's nationgear.ca, or you can check out the link in our show bio. Life's too short ordinary vacations. Lisa Grinton writes in, Rosie, we are Canadian strong.
Oh, that's good. Doesn't change the exchange rate on the US dollar, though. But
It sadly does not. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. Tell you something, February 15th is going to be great for a variety of reasons because we're hosting a watch party down at Greta on King Street West. It is Canada and the U.S. at the Four Nations. That should be a fun one.
I would think it would be. I'm looking forward to that one. Just in general, puck drop, see the team, but Canada, US, that's going to be the big one.
Boo!
And,
Sorry, I'm just practicing.
yeah, I wonder. Hey, I wonder if tensions will be up there a little extra due to the new political landscape. We'll see, man. I don't think they need too much help getting up for that one. And again, I'm curious to see the intensity level of this tournament. Is it going to have buddy, tummy sticks, all-star vibes? Or is it going to be, F you, we are not friends. I'm playing for this thing that means a lot, and I take this very seriously, and I want to show the world what we are made of, and we'll see what level that gets to. I hope that it's super intense, and these all-stars in the league go out there and show how hockey's supposed to be.
Here, I think we're back. We're back here. Are we back here?
We're back.
We're back.
Old school by throwing a
comments. I think we're back now, Rosie. I love some of the comments. Our apologies here on the technical issues. Tyson writing in, Big Brother heard the political comments. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, some of the higher ups in the deep state were listening and pulled the plug on that kind of talk. That's a warning, a little pee-pee whack over there. Okay, no more of that.
Yeah, Leafs Oilers. Let's talk about that one. A couple notable things. Obviously, Joseph Woll, incredible. What a save on Perry. The offside call called back late in the game, but I love that. Matthew Nice comes back right away, 1-1. It just, his importance to this squad is through the roof, dude.
Big time, like 1-1 to come back. He's everywhere, man, and he's getting those goals that are playoff type of goals, right? You're in front, you corral a loose puck that's in everybody's feet, and you pull it through onto your backhand and bury it. Like, I didn't even see that. Matthews made that shot and it didn't look like a nothing. And then all of a sudden they're celebrating. It's like, geez, man, he just finds ways to get it done. He can score in a plethora of different ways. But my favorite thing is that there are a lot of gritty playoff style goals that he's in the right spot. And he's the one that comes up with the puck, and his strength and his positioning gets him to the spots that he needs to be. And yeah, to miss a considerable amount of time and then just come in and make an impact. Like, sometimes guys got to get their feet wet. No, my timing's off, and I got to find my mojo. And BB, not him. Just steps right in and fantastic. And also with Wainwright boy here, he's grew up being an Oilers fan. That third goal, roofing it hard bar down there with Bobby McMahon, was nice. That was kind of a bit of a dagger that ended up being a huge goal. That third goal to go up 3-0 really put that building on their heels. So just all around pretty good effort from everybody. Mitchie scored. That was a nice passing play with all them, man. Like, they were really finding each other there. Finds a way to bury that. And, Matthews, to be honest with you, I think I tweeted something. There was the first half of that game, I thought he was just floating, like absolutely floating. There was multiple times where I could have seen, him go after a puck. He would self chip one deep and then just watch and then not even go after it. It seemed like he was standing up straight, kind of gliding around. And I was like, please don't be hurt. Please don't be hurt. Or maybe his head wasn't into it. I don't know. I thought it was worth mentioning. I tweeted out something like, he just seemed to be on total cruise control at about 65% out there, where you compare that against Willie Nylander, who was just like a dog on a bone the whole time, who was absolutely buzzing. So something to kind of watch if where his intensity level is here in the next week.
Yeah, I did see that tweet. Again, I'm leaning on Rosie a bit more today because I was only able to stream the game a bit. Like, I was at a wedding, but a lot of people did have the game on streaming, but was looking back and forth. Yeah, I did see your tweet. Nylander, from what I saw, was just absolutely buzzing out there. And again, that's the thing with Matthews. Like it's been a really weird year with that, where when he's supremely hot, he's like out of this planet hot. And then like sometimes he just blends in. Like he's blended in more to the play this year than in previous years. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say so, especially the first half of the season where he's dealing with injuries. I think you
Yeah.
can give him that benefit of the doubt, like the guy's hurting. And if you've ever played hurt, where you very well should be on the shelf, you can't move, and to get low and to find that power and to really grind and work your tail off, it just hurts everything. If you got a hip or a back or a groin or something going on. So I get that, but
Yeah.
by all accounts, he's healthy. He certainly looked healthy and been in there with some intensity. But yeah, like I said, I was just, it was 3 shifts in a row where I'm like, I gotta say something. He's floating out there, and he wasn't really that big of a presence out there. And you compare that to Nylander, who is absolutely flying, like just simply moving your feet, working your tail off, trying to hunt down pucks and stuff. There was multiple times I thought Matthews easily could have done that and just chose not to, and almost looked a little bit lazy. And then I started, once I noticed it enough to mention it, I was like, "Okay, don't be hurt. Don't say." And now
Yeah.
Austin's walked down to the tunnel to the log. It wasn't that obviously, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I hold him to a high standard. I don't think he takes heat for very much. I understand he's dealt with an injury this year, but if we're going to go into the playoffs and you're going to get into those games where, damn it, it is 1-1 and we cannot get that next goal, like you got to pull your pants up and you got to friggin' battle for every inch out there in some of those series that get to those grinding points. And I'm sorry, but when you need one, it standing up straight and gliding and watching ain't going to get anything done. So I hope that's just a one-off.
Look, I'm choosing to give the franchise, the player, the benefit of the doubt that he is 100% and there's nothing to worry about. Because if you're telling me all this is to play in some cheesy, fabricated 4-team tournament, like it's just not going to be a good look. And I'm sure he saw over the weekend. I chuckled when I saw the report. Like Yanni Hakanpää is not going to play. No kidding. Is he going to play another game for the Maple Leafs? Is my bigger question. And I know I come on this every podcast. I'm like, where in the world is Yanni Hakanpää? It's got that John Klingberg feel to it all over again from last year. Although we knew right away that he was done. He was cooked for the year. They've said nothing on Hakanpää to the point the other day, Berube's like, I can't even give you a timeline. So I don't know what's going on that front. But from the Matthews perspective, I again, the benefit of the doubt that this guy's 100%, everything's in the rear view, because that's going to be a bad look if he gets dinged up at that tourney or he gets banged up before and he's just not right.
And I mean, that's the big thing with with going to the Olympics. I mean, insurance is a huge deal. Like, do you know what it means to have, a Nathan McKinnon, a McDavid, a
Mm-hmm.
Matthews and Marner and these guys? You know what they're worth? Like, you're paying them X. They bring in this much for your team. Winning brings in this much for your team. Like from an ownership business style of perspective, they go to these tournaments and you get hurt and you miss the playoffs, get bounced in the first round, don't go deep. Your team suffers. There's a lot of money on the line, and with the insurance of all these players, it's what makes it difficult to get best on best. It's what makes it difficult to send them to the Olympics, and it's kind of always been a talking point because of all the money involved. And sorry, that's the reality of the world we live in. But we put this thing together, and you send them. If 1, 2, 3 guys go down, they're all big names if they're in that tournament. Tough look. My fingers are really crossed that this is high intensity. Guys are working hard. They're very competitive and intense games with some really good fireworks happening, and everyone stays healthy. That's my goal, because, like you say, it'll be a bad look if some guys get knocked down in this damn thing.
Yeah, definitely. And we've seen a couple guys bow out, obviously, with Canada, Pietrangelo, William Karlsson with Vegas, Swedish, obviously not playing because of injury. Miro Heiskanen is going to be out. So there are some names out there, but definitely from a Leafs perspective, something to monitor. We talked about this last week, how it's more worrisome from a Leafs perspective because 3 of like your marquee talents, everything to you, are playing in that tournament, and just God forbid something were to occur. It'd just be terrible for that to happen and go off the rails for this Maple Leafs team, who are in dire need of something substantial in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But the stat line on Nyes was awesome for a guy who missed a couple games, obviously from that shoulder issue. 1 goal, 1 assist, +1, 2 shots on goal, 4 hits, 1 block, 16-14 of ice. But the The bigger thing for me was like Jake McCabe, who has been such an incredible story this year. He's been so steady, so stable, so good. Played 30-22. That's because Oliver Ekman-Larsson leaves the game with a lower body injury. The Leafs don't practice till later on today. Of course, they're out west playing in Calgary tomorrow, but we'll see. I mean, they just labeled it day to day. You just never know what this Leafs team day to day could mean, week to week, to month. But Jake McCabe, they needed somebody to step up, and it was him in that game.
Yeah, big time. Daddy Mac. It seems like
Yeah,
he is you know, constantly bumping his stock higher and higher as the games go by with, he's overshadowing, Morgan Riley quite easily, Tanev, OEL, like some good name D-men that you thought were going to be the core of the D. This McCabe seems to be the story all the time. He's chipping in all kinds of different ways. You put him under the gun like that and lose OEL, and it's like, okay, you got to play half the game now. Like you're double shifting in the National Hockey League against the Edmonton Oilers all game long, and you come up strong and you did your job and you turned things to the outside and made the right plays and cleared the pucks and had the angles and the lanes and the lines and the assignments. It's impressive, man. And his stock keeps getting bumped up, every game. And it's just, makes me think that, that center position is starting to look more and more like something we need to fill in more so than the D. I know a lot of people are talking about which would you rather fill, the D spot or maybe a depth centerman. And
yeah.
when he's making performances like that, he's making a case that they've got more pieces in place than people give him credit for.
And my favorite thing about McCabe is just like the snarl he plays with, right? Like he's
I
just got
know.
like an angry, like pissed off face. And I love that. Like just every night he brings it. And, for him, it's not really about offense, which I think is kind of cool in 2025 too, where it's like every game he's going to be physical. He's going to be strong, hard to play against. I know Oilers fans, and I'm sure you saw this, pissed off about the play on McDavid's where, the guy's going so fast and he wiped him out a bit, smashed into the boards. But he just brings that sandpaper. Like he's the total package, I feel, on the back end for this team right now. And again, the contract extension is great too. I love that value. Again, everything we just talked about earlier on with the cap going up, pretty damn good value on Jake McCabe.
Yeah, you go comparables against him in the league,
Yeah,
guys that can shut down for 30 minutes straight in a night, and the AAV isn't even close. So another bit of a steal of a deal there from Tree Living, and a guy that's panning out under the bright lights of Toronto. It's great to see. And if I don't know, like if Morgan Riley can find his game, it
I
just
know.
seems like he's swept under the carpet like a lost cause, like a $7.5 million lost cause. It took a long time for the market to kind of realize that this guy's not doing anything out there on either sides of the ice. And now I'm wondering, like, imagine he was playing like a $7.5 million defenseman,
I
and then
know.
you complement that with the Tanevs and the OELs and the McCabes and Benoit's snarl, and it's just like you look so deep. And unfortunately, as great as it is that McCabe is stepping up, if you could have your Morgan Riley playing like a $7.5 D-man, the D-man would just look ridiculous. And I don't know if that's in the works or in the cards or not. It just seems like Morgan Riley is a shell of himself.
Yeah, I agree. They got to figure that out, right? They need to get Riley closer to what he has been in the past, including a couple years back in the playoffs. If not, I think it's going to be a troublesome situation moving forward. A guy who's been a Leaf for a long period of time. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button again at the Leafs Nation 401. Let's spend some time talking about Joseph Woll because we glossed over it earlier on, but to make 45 saves, he needed to be that guy, the rock, the wall, and he was. I mean, that save is big. You have a 3-0 lead in that game, but to make 45 stops on a red hot Oilers team like that was the biggest story for me on Saturday night, Rosie.
At the end, I was standing on
Oh,
my feet yelling, just knowing they're going to find Draisaitl in that back door, just like they did when they tied it up, although it was offside and got pulled back. But you give him anything, and that guy just picks the corner like he is absolutely deadly. And you knew the Oilers were going to swarm. You knew they were going to have a big push. Tavares kind of had a pretty good look at an empty net too on the right side of the red line, and couldn't bury that. I thought to myself, it's over, it's over, it's over. And then of course they set up again, and I was biting my nails. But Woolsey was the rock back there, and like I said, if Woll plays well tonight, I think they were going to get the win, and that was quite firmly on the shoulders of Joseph Woll. And when these Maple Leaf goaltenders are playing good. It's palpable. You can just feel it. Like there's a
Yeah.
sense of relief before anything even happens. Like you're not panicking. And in years past, when that puck's going cross crease and they've got it set up, and the D man and the forwards are kind of jostling around trying to take the lanes away, you're just thinking, oh my God, this is going to go on someone's stick, and the goalie's on the other side of the bloody crease, and it's backdoor tapping. Like you just can't rely on it. And that happens over and over and over again when our two goalies are on their game and they're just in the right spots, and a huge breakdown or a big play by the opposition turns into a nothing burger because they're just right there big and just absorb it and whistle and you move on, and it's a nothing. It's huge to have. And I think that's a story that maybe hasn't been tapped on quite enough, is how well Woll has played in the absence of Anthony Stolarz, for a guy that let's remember that he doesn't have years and years of experience behind him. He hasn't really been a number one before. He's battled injuries and that ability to stay healthy. And you throw him in and say, well, you're our last hope here because, Hildeby and Murray are behind you. And that's not exactly, indicative of rattling off, 18 out of 20 wins. And he's done the job and he's stayed healthy and he's got the big ones. And it's highlighted by the very last play of the very last game they made, where it was just highlight reel stuff.
Oh, such a phenomenal save. But you're right. There's like a quiet confidence to the team when Joseph Woll is playing his game, where it's almost like, I don't really care if they get a shot on goal. Like in recent memory where it's like Samsonov and you're like, man, if anything towards the net, you're like, this scares the hell out of me. And there's been so many examples of that from the Leafs crease the last decade, where you're like kind of concerned every time a puck's near the net. Whereas like Woll, I don't know if you feel the same way watching the games. Like I can see a point shot coming. I'm like, he's going to stop that. More times than not, he's going to stop that. I love the confidence I have in this crease right now.
Yeah, and I'm excited for Stoli to get back.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that he was the better of the two goalies as well as they both played, but Stoli is just huge, and his positioning and his just prowess in the crease. If you remember back to when he was playing and playing a lot, he was like unbeatable at times, and it was incredible. And you almost just like laughed at some of the setups that they get in your zone, because you're like, you're not beating Stoli. It was that type of confidence you had. So I think it'll be nice for Woll to get Stoli back and to kind of get the pressure taken off and to sit back and say, wow, weathered the storm, did my job, and have got my confidence back and can start sharing the crease. I don't know if that's his mentality or not, but that's going to be the reality of the situation. And that should be his mentality once Stoli comes back. And I think by all accounts, those guys get along really good and understand the positions they're in. And it's time for Stoli to get back in there and hopefully pick up right where he left off, because he also, as well as Woll, looked phenomenal. I think we had one of the best 1-2 punch, top three for sure in the league as far as goaltending tandems there when they were both healthy.
So the power play goes 2 for 2. What did you see from them? As mentioned earlier on, I didn't watch the majority of the game, but to see that, I mean, that is a story because we've been documenting it all season long, but 2 for 2 on the PP.
Yeah, it seemed like they had a shot mentality, and it seemed like they had a presence in front of the net, and it seemed like they had some battle, at the top of that crease to dig out those loose pucks and to be the ones that come up with it. It's always difficult, like as a defenseman, when they're putting pucks on net and they aren't getting gobbled up and there is loose pucks. You're trying to get sticks, you're trying to get body position, you're trying to find the puck. Your stick's getting tied up by the opposition. It's a scramble, and it seems like our team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, are coming up with that puck more often than not just coming up with it, but getting it to a place where nobody is, including the goaltender, and burying it. It was with the Bobby McMahon goal, the Matthew Nyes goal. It was pucks that get funneled. It's a shoot first mentality. And when those pucks go to the net, they're not grade A chances, but they turn into scoring chances. And I'm hoping that that's something this power play is realized and adopted, because they refuse to do that for game after game after game. It had to be that perfect tic-tac-toe highlight reel backdoor, blew the doors off of everybody type of play that they're looking for, which just isn't there very often in today's NHL. I don't care who you are. And now they're funneling pucks to the net and getting those greasy ones that, you get 2 of those in a game, you're going to give yourself a chance to win. So it was refreshing to see them have success in that way.
It's funny we get to this juncture in the season because you see a lot of data, you see a lot of trends. And for me, the big thing, we've talked about it, is that magic number of goals offense for the Leafs. Like they get the 3 goals, it's an automatic win, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I think they've lost 3 games or 2 games when they score 3 or more. Like it's just amazing, that fine line that that team is in the clear. And they're pretty good at holding leads too. Like that's the other story for me is the record this season when leading after 2 was in serious jeopardy in that game, but they hung on, right?
Yeah, and it's not like that's a stat of when they score 5, they win 90% of the time. It's
Yeah.
3. It's
Yeah.
very realistic the way this team is built with
Mhm.
their firepower and their all-star games. I mean, you should be able to get, 3 goals and like you say they're short up on the back end with their D-men. We're talking about McCabe and the different pieces, and our goaltending duo has been phenomenal this year. So, what does it come down to? Well, you got to score goals 60 minutes of play. Can that group get 3 goals? And when they do, they almost always win. So, yeah, it is funny. The one knock on this team so far this season is when they dry up offensively, they have a lot of trouble winning games. And if you know the history of the team, that has happened in the playoffs. So what the fix is to that, if it's a mentality or a system thing or a work ethic thing, or what mentality changes that team from being able to score, and then when they start spinning their wheels and can't score, it's tough to say. But you really hope from a Leafs perspective that they can get a stranglehold on that and find out ways to score that third goal, which again sets them up almost every time.
Bayux, I think is his handle, writes in 21-0-0 leading after 2. Is that right? I believe that's right. Like that is incredible closing ability, especially when you compare it and contrast it to like recent memory, right?
Yeah, in the past, right? It's
Yeah.
been like, man, when they've had those teams that are really good where everyone's getting the points and blah blah blah, and they've had those good regular seasons, there's been a lot of games, trap games against bottom feeder teams. They get
Yeah.
smoked like predictably, which was a terrible habit to have as a team. And then, they get up all the time. They got this firepower. They're playing kind of loop-de shoot hockey, and they get up 3-0 or 4-1. But we know as fans, like, oh God, they're gonna let right
I
off the
know.
gas, and they're playing the Oilers, and they're gonna absolutely dump everything, and they're gonna that stunned look on all their faces. Oh, we're giving up another lead. They did it like clockwork, man. And I feel like that's a stat that has all but left their game in a lot of ways, and they've shored that up, which is super important for a playoff team that wants to have success, and a character team that understands the mentality of, I don't care if we have a lead, we're not changing anything, we're not letting them back in the game, we're not gonna let our foot off the gas. That's pee-wee hockey stuff, and it's really nice that they've shored that up this year.
Anyway, slice it. That was a massive win for this Leafs team. They got teams on their heels, namely the Ottawa Senators. You just keep winning and winning and
Yeah.
winning. We're going to get to them in the last call, brought to you by Bet365, the lone game on the slate. They're in Nashville to take on Luke Schen's Nashville Predators, but they're 4 points behind. With a win tonight, they'll be 2 points back. I think just in general, you lose 3 in a row, you want to get back on the right foot. And to do that on Hockey Night in Canada against the Red Hot Oilers team, who I think were like 9-3 in the previous 12, like they were cooking major. And just to remind, which this team does from time to time, they remind you like, yeah, we're struggling, but we're still pretty damn good when we're effective and on, right?
Yeah, big time. I mean, if you can win games without your best, that is the hallmark of a really good team.
Yeah.
And the more times you can find that, because you're not going to have your best. I know in a perfect world, everyone's like, oh, just start the game on all cylinders. Don't let off. Lean on all of your best. And everyone, it doesn't work like that. There's 20 guys, and everyone's got a different thing going on, and ailments and mindsets and goaltenders and positions and power plays and a million different things going on. You're not always going to have your best. But yeah, a hallmark of a really good team is winning when you don't have your best. That is something that you don't really talk about, because you don't want to say you didn't have your best all the time. But they know when they didn't have their best games and they still handle a team in the National Hockey League, it's a big time confidence booster.
Oh, definitely. And feeling good, feeling much better about this team. Like that was a sneaky big game, because then you drop 4 in a row. You're going to take an upstart Calgary team on Tuesday. That should be a good one as well. They need to get the job done, and they did, which is the biggest positive for me. And again, Joseph Woll, the biggest reason why they were able to hammer out that victory against the Oilers. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet in a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, use code NATION, all in uppercase today. That's NATION, NATION. Just one game on the slate. I have to play Ottawa in this game. They just been on fire. I think they're the underdog in this one against Nashville. I think has points in 8 of the last 10 on home ice, but I'm going to go with Ottawa in this game, Rosie.
Yeah, I'm going to go as far as to take them in regulation. I think they're hot as hell. They beat the doors off of the Minnesota Wild there on the weekend, and
That was impressive.
oh, big time impressive. They're on a run here, and we know what's going on with the Nashville Predators this year. I don't think there is a whole lot of jam left in that locker room with what they've gone through this year. So yeah, I'm taking them in regulation, which is pretty heavy plus money. I don't want to, but I think that's the bet tonight.
Sounds good. Coming up tomorrow, Rosie, we're going to tee up the Leafs and the Calgary Flames. Are you headed to that game, by the way?
I should talk to my brother. He's got seasons. Maybe I should be, but yeah, it hasn't crossed my mind yet.
Fair enough. So that's coming up tomorrow, and I believe Brian Hayes of TSN's Overdrive is going to drop by tomorrow too.
Right on. It'll be good to pick his brain, and we've got the week off on the good foot here, Nikolai, and I'm glad you've rested off that hangover from the big wedding this weekend.
Just exhausted, tired. That's all it is. A little fatigue, buddy. We'll get through this, though. At the Leafs Nation 401, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com as well. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Very lively, much different feel to the chat when the Maple Leafs wins hockey games, and specifically against the Edmonton Oilers. A very vibrant chat today, so I love that too.
I liked going back on Twitter and looking at the what team feels best to beat, and everyone's like, oh, the Maple Leafs. So of course you got to retweet that stuff and throw it back in their face. Inevitably it will be back, but it's fun to, I don't know why Oilers fans are fun to pick at. I like them, and I felt bad for them for the better part of 15 years. Obviously they got a real nice sniff to last year, being that close Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals. So they've got themselves standing high a little bit, but it's fun to go back and forth, and it's absolutely really fun when we beat them with the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Forgot to add too, of course, John Klingberg got a point in that game. I was telling Zach Phillips at the wedding, I'm like, dude, if you can find a book that has a John Klingberg point, he will get a point. I think it was like plus 450. So congrats.
You should have seen the first in the first period. Willie was streaking down the right side, and Klinger was the last guy back, and he tried to do a little crossover, and you got to think maybe he's rusty or what. But he absolutely crossed him up, broke his ankles. Klingberg just fell right down. Willie walked in. Didn't bury, unfortunately, but they was like, there's Klinger. I can't remember. I was going to tweet something about, man, you guys sure like taking our offshoot garbage, but I don't know if he's the answer to get them to the finals again.
We'll see. We'll leave it at that. Thank you to producer Andy. Thank you to Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk on Tuesday. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.